So we want to share some thoughts and some clips from mainly from the Bulwark this time. The Bulwark is was founded sometime after 2016 because it was never Trump Republicans founding a media organization that they called the Bulwark. Of course, the idea is like a bulwark against the fascism of the Republican Party and Donald Trump. That's the origin behind the name. And I've enjoyed them because I don't really want to have to go into deep Republican podcast world to try and understand what they're thinking. That's just too painful. Like I don't have the stomach for it. I'm not a positive enough person to listen to that madness and not fall into despair. But the Bulwark can give me, they do that work. They have people who do that work, and then they sort of tell you, what do you need to know? And then also, some of it is like translating to you why Republicans are like this. Um, and then also watching them, because I did mention them at the end of the last one we did, just watching them shift and move and then sometimes fall back into Republican patterns that I think are just
Yeah,
familiar to them and they don't
kind of
know any
reminds me of
differently.
my journey right now with Christianity, right?
Yeah,
You,
oh, it's very similar.
you know,
I did
it's
make
so
a
easy to
TikTok
slip
about
right
this
back
once.
in to that language and that way of thinking. I mean, it just,
They're to me they're like progressive Christians who haven't left yet. That's the Bulwark for me. They're like trying to hold on to some of their conservatism while watching it be the worst version it's ever been. And then also having really, they have to wrestle with the fact that even when they were part of the movement, all of these terrible things were there. They just weren't they weren't turned up to 10. They were at like two or three, but they were a part of the movement. And watching them wrestle with all of that is pretty interesting. And maybe I'll just start then with a clip where you're seeing some of that. So this is JVL, Jonathan V. Last, and Sarah Longwell in this clip. And they're going to be talking about the ways in which the Republican Party, when it's doing badly at governing, will find itself someone that everybody on their side can hate. And then that does the trick of bringing everybody back in and getting the votes.
Um, but here's a line from the piece that I think is relevant to this question. Flailing regimes dehumanize minorities to distract from their failures. When the economy collapses or a war goes badly, they find a tiny group of people, make them the enemy within, and rally the country against them. This is what this is about. You see this in Russia. They've been doing this to the LGBT community in Poland. But basically, it is a way to capture populist sentiment on an issue that they can get their heads around. I have a whole chapter about this in my book, Trans America, where I talk about how similar it is to what it was like when they were trying to scapegoat gay people, the George W. Bush administration, during the Iraq War, going into the midterms. It was all sending pictures of guys in leather and chaps to old people to scare them.
So she was a Republican operative. That second part, when she talks, that's 2004. That's the John Kerry, George W. Bush election that Kerry almost won. And that's right. They had states do gay marriage bans. So they wanted them to set up votes for banning gay marriage with the assumption that we can get our people excited to ban gay marriage. They're not excited to vote for George W. Bush because they know this is a disaster and the Iran war is a disaster and so on. But what we can do is we can get them excited by doing gay marriage bans, and that will get us the excitement we need to win the presidency. and it worked. And the irony is Sarah Longwell speaking there, she is a lesbian.
Huh.
She's been working and Tim Miller, the other person you're going to see in another clip, he's the one who will be interviewing the woman she was quoting. She was quoting from an article from a trans intelligence officer named Julia. She was quoting from that article in the Atlantic. And then Tim Miller, you're going to see later, is the one interviewing her at the Bulwark, and he is a gay man, and he tried to get W's brother elected, and instead Trump won. Can't remember that guy's name. What's that? Bush? He was the governor of Florida. And I mean, being a gay person working in Republican politics, my mind can't understand such things. But there you go. And it happened. And she talks in that podcast with JVL, her colleague, about how uncomfortable it was about having to hide, because it was fine that she was gay as long as she just kind of kept it to herself and people didn't know. Then it was fine. You know, you can be a closeted gay in the Republican Party, just like you can be a closeted gay at Western Seminary here in town. You can be a professor there if you're closeted or if you're celibate, or you can go to any church you want and be closeted. It's fine. Don't talk about it. You can be a part of this. So that's what she's talking about. And then she's quoting the analyst that we'll get to, who's saying, when you don't have anything positive to sell, no positive vision to sell, you can always find a marginalized, powerless group to target. And that's what this administration has done that with immigrants mainly, but also trans. That was part of the election against Harris, was that she was for they, them, and Donald Trump is for you. That was one of his ads that was supposed to be so effective somehow.
Well, if you go back even further, that during Reagan and the first Bush, it was the race card they played.
Welfare queens.
Oh, that's right.
That's the one that's like heavily racialized in the 80s. Right. And the idea being like, oh, government is so pathetic that it just gives out money to people who don't want to work, and we call them welfare queens. I'll let you guess which race they said the welfare queens were when they depicted them, right?
Yeah.
Most of the welfare queens, which there are zero, I should say, but most people on welfare in the United States are white, of course, not black.
Huh.
There's not enough black. I mean, partially, there's only 15% of the population's black. So it's like, you know, the South has a ton of poverty and people on all kinds of welfare.
It's amazing,
they're
isn't
white.
it? Well, Upper P, Michigan too, has their poor counties that have, and they're all white. But I took it down a rabbit hole.
Farmers in Iowa get lots of assistance from the government, and they're mostly white, but none of that is considered welfare, of course.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I took us down a rabbit hole there. I was remembering.
You're saying other marginalized groups that have been
I think
the targets in the past.
Yeah, it's proves to be true. And now I didn't realize it was Clinton, but it's not just the Republican Party who has done this, although they've majored in it.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing to note is every time the Republican Party finds a group to scapegoat, they need to find a group that white Christians will hate.
Mm-hmm.
That's how this works. That's the scapegoating they need. That's the group they have to target.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that white people will dislike African Americans in the 80s. They know that white Christians will be against gay marriage in the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And now they know that white Christians will be against immigrants and trans people in 2025, 26. So the scapegoating is always like, which groups do white Christians hate that we can also say we hate so that we can win? That's period. That's how this has worked since the founding of our country. That's how this has worked.
Wow.
essentially. I mean, there is no, I mean, for example, there is no like significant movement in which marginalized people were given more rights that a majority of Christians, but let's just say white Christians, because that's always the majority of Christians in the country, that the majority of Christians were spearheading. They were always the opposition at every turn. They're slavery. Which of the two do you think, the North or the South, was more Christian in
No,
when we
still the same.
still now? I mean,
Red state.
they laced their new constitution with all kinds of religious Jesus Bible language. The Confederates, right? You know, we had to fight a war against white Christians who wanted to keep slavery,
Yeah.
you know, and then what comes after that? What's the next big movement? Uh, Women's suffrage? Well, come on. Who do you really think white Christians were the ones getting that one over the finish line? That's the 1920s. Then let's go to the Civil Rights Movement. Then let's go to the Americans with Disabilities Act, which, by the way, I just looked up today. Churches are still exempt from the American with Disabilities Act. They made sure that religious institutions, they passed it. Republicans eventually came along because H.W. Bush said they should, but they made sure to get an exemption. So even now, as we speak, religious institutions do not have to make their facilities compliant for people with disabilities
Hmm.
to today.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm so tired of this.
Yeah.
I'm so tired of it. I can't even begin to communicate how tired I am of it. Anything else on that particular clip?
Well, only to say that that it it always amazes me how easily we are manipulated as a people. It just how gullible we are. I mean, I read just finished the novel James, and in it, Jim, who's the slave in the main character, him
It's
and
kind of
Huck.
a rewriting of Huck Finn from the
Yeah,
perspective of
yeah,
James. Is that right?
yeah. It's a rewriting from Jim's perspective rather than Huck's. If you read
Right.
Huckleberry Finn, which I did along with it, that's written from Huck's perspective, and Huck comes out the smarter and all that, and
Mm.
James or Jim isn't really portrayed as being that smart in Huck. And I think the Percival wanted to fix that because he knew better. He knew, who was the one who, even in Huck, came out as the smarter of the group. So, but Jim says, outside of cruelty, gullibility is the other trait that whites are most known for. He said, first
Mhm.
cruelty, and then gullibility. And when you put those two together, a people who are willing to be cruel and a people who are gullible, and if you're marginalized, I don't care what marginalized people you are, that's a dangerous combination. And
Mhm.
that's what I heard when she talked about, the Trump and Hagsteth and that whole group now needing to distract from how badly the war is going, how badly the economy is, give them a cultural issue like
Mhm.
abortion has been that for them for
Mhm.
decades now. And now that's kind of gone. It's still there, but it's kind of gone. So what do they need next? Well, it's basically it's not just trans athletes. It's in particular trans women. That
Mhm.
seems to bother them the most, which
Mhm.
again is fascinating to me. Why is that?
Mhm.
Why do trans women seem to bother them more than trans men. And I understand it athletically because trans men can't compete. Not
Well, that's the assumption. I actually think most of this is all incorrect. I actually don't think trans women, right? People who transitioned from male to female and then want to compete. It's not generally true that they have an advantage. Um, it's perceived that way because we just generally imagine that any man who became a woman would then be able to dominate whatever sport they wanted or whatever. Um, but it's not true. And the hormones and all these things are less obvious than people think, because a lot of people think like, well, they have so much more testosterone. By the time they transition, they do not have more testosterone than women, than biological women. They don't. So a lot of it isn't even the stuff that people think is like, well, this is obviously true, isn't.
uh,
Uh, because so much stuff is like that. Um, it's not as straightforward as we think. It's more dynamic, more complex. And of course, there's like all the tr trans female athletes currently competing in college could probably stay at my house.
yeah.
Probably. I mean, if we just made enough room here and there, we maybe even already have enough beds. Who knows? It's such a non-problem
Right.
that that is the gullibility part,
Yeah,
right?
I agree. I agree with that. We have a trans athlete, the first trans athlete to compete at the Division I level coming in November. His name is
Yeah.
Skylar Bailey, and he was in Yale as a swimmer. And then we have Tim Salgo in 2 weeks following up, and Tim's a part of a group called Common Sense
No,
and Common
common
Grace,
ground.
Common Ground. Thank you. And trying to find a way to maneuver through all this, like Josh is saying, misinformation and
But the thing is like
prejudices we have.
people they don't have enough curiosity or empathy to try to figure it out.
Yeah.
White Christians don't care to figure it out. They're
Yeah.
not going to even try. They think of it, and there's a clip, but it's kind of long, so I won't play it. I can just sort of summarize it. Sarah Longwell, the one you heard speaking, who's a lesbian and used to be a Republican operative, she does focus groups, and she'll say that, yeah, they in her focus groups, the Trump voters, they don't like Iran and they don't like prices, but they're glad that he finally said there's only two genders.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
finally we got that, and that's really important. And she goes on to say, to kind of explain like, why is this such a big deal to them? For them, if you don't understand that there's only two genders, they just think you're a dummy that they don't need to listen to about anything.
That's right. Yeah.
Is what she says. That's like a fundamental thing, and if you don't understand that, I can just disregard you as a nutcase, right? And it's a good explanation for how they feel. It's like a litmus test, essentially. If you can say there's two genders, then we maybe can trust that you're living in reality. But if you don't think it's obvious that there's just two basic genders, we can just distrust everything about you. And her retort was like, well, if you voted for Trump 3 times, I feel the same way.
That's
As
right.
do I, of course.
That was a good comment by her, by the way.
Yeah. And I think it boils down to this. This is a clip I have, but didn't necessarily intend to, but you've seen it. So I think it'll be useful here. So Sean Duffy is the current transportation secretary.
Yeah.
And he and his wife were once on The Real World. That's where they met. MTV used to have this show. And they are now apparently doing a kind of reality show while he's transportation secretary. I don't know. I just happened to find this clip. And this is a clip of him talking to his daughter about college, because they're obviously doing college visits. And I'll play it for you to see. And I think you'll understand how this fits into what we're currently talking about.
But if I do get it, I feel like you can't say no.
To Harvard?
Yeah.
Well, me and Mom can say no.
Catholicism to us is everything. It's the basis of our marriage. It's the basis of our family. So I'm nervous about the idea of Paloma going to Harvard. We spend a lot of time nurturing and providing formation for our kids, giving them an environment where they are steeped in faith and values. And so the idea of dropping her off at a place that would undermine that or try to undo all those things makes me worried.
And again, I don't want them to get one viewpoint. I want them to get a lot of different viewpoints. But I don't want them fed only one viewpoint that's contrary to the way my kids were raised. Listen, I think my problem is we have thought about how we raised you and how hard we've worked to, I think, raise what is a remarkable young girl. If I send you there, I think what happens is they have professionalized figuring out how they can take good young girls like you and I think corrupt their minds. You don't have to believe what I believe. You don't have to have the political viewpoints that I have, but I do think it's important that you make those choices for yourself and you have a fair representation of what they are. And I don't think the Harvards of the world give you that kind of well-rounded picture.
But I went to an extremely conservative school in high school, and I'm part of an extremely conservative family.
But they're so good at it. You'll see young people go to a conservative school with a conservative family, and they get perverted and contorted.
My parents, I understand where they're coming from. I just think they're kind of being dramatic and closed-minded. I don't think it's gonna like undo 17 years of like them parenting me.
So there's so much there. I'm going to start at the end, which is that the truth is they know. Some part of them knows that what she says at the end there is actually false. Harvard will undo their Christian bullshit. It will. I mean, that's the truth. Because Harvard will come with expertise, with evidence, with well-formulated arguments, without fear. It'll just be experts who are at the top of their game telling her what they know to be true, that they spent decades trying to understand. And yeah, that's right. And the difference is Harvard is teaching reality. They're teaching things that are real, things that can be measured and studied and argued for. And Christianity is not that, especially not the version they're talking about, obviously.
Right.
The
Yeah, I
version they're
think that's-
talking about has no space for critical thinking whatsoever.
I think that's fair to say, Josh. And she'll also run into some of the country's most intelligent and thoughtful and open-minded students.
Yeah.
I mean, she's been in a cocoon, really. I mean, she's Christian school, Christian parents, and also it's really kind of hypocritical to me for them to be pretending that they didn't program their child to believe in a certain way. I mean, that to me is the obvious blind spot for them and for Christianity in general, for me, is a lack of recognition as that you propagandized your child from the time they were little into believing things that they now believe. And yes, they're going to get out into the academic world, and unless they go to another conservative Christian liberal arts college, they're going to get out into the academic world, and there's all that stuff's going to get challenged. And will it hold up or not? That's the question, and that's what they're afraid of. But for them to blatantly say that Harvard's going to pervert the child on purpose,
On purpose.
this again is very troubling to me, that they've actually groomed their child to believe certain
100%.
things. And
They
now,
took they had their child at their most impressionable. That child, they had everything. They had the entire environment controlled the way they wanted it to form her into exactly what they wanted her to be, and yet they know.
yeah,
They
and
know,
there's fear behind them too, you
of
know, and
course.
that's I recognize that fear for when you went on for graduate studies and postgraduate in the University of Chicago and Duke, you know, we were told by other people who did the same route, look, he's gonna change. Are you ready for that? And we weren't ready for all the changes that you went through, to be
Sure.
honest, but now we're kind of all working at this together as a family, and the change is um, more within all of us than it is just in you. But I just want to emphasize again the blind spot that so many Christians have, that they haven't raised their kids to believe certain things certain ways and have not given them access to the kind of information, the kind of dialogue, and the kind of exchanges and the kind of tension that will actually benefit the child as they move into adulthood, where they're going to get challenged and won't know what to do with the challenge except to pull back within themselves, just like their parents are doing here. Let's isolate you, and because we don't want you. Part of it, as I watched her face, she
No,
wasn't with him at
she's so
all.
ready. She's so ready to get away from these people.
She
She
just
can't
like,
wait.
she
She's like,
can't
you
wait.
guys are so lost.
You could see it in
Well,
her face. Like she was like, I don't know what to do. Here's my dad, who I love and who's telling me he's in charge of me. He basically
Well,
said,
that's the other thing, right?
we can
Yeah.
stop you from going.
Hmm. That's
She
right.
said, what's this? And he said, no, it's up to us whether you go there or not. Now,
Right.
what is that? That too is a form of, I don't want
It's
to, I think
it's
going too far
patriarchy.
to, yeah, it's patriarchy. And he's like sitting there saying, no, hey, I'm going to tell you where you're going to go. You're going
Yep.
to go where I say. In the end, you're not going to Harvard if I say you're not going to Harvard.
Well, and the other thing is, from her perspective, and certainly from mine, but I'm guessing probably from hers, all of this amazing Catholic upbringing brought you into Trump's cabinet, and I'm supposed to respect that? I'm supposed to look at that path, and I'm supposed to think it's good? That that is your moral reasoning after all of your Catholicism. It led you into Trump's second cabinet, where everything was known. There's no excuse anymore. You work for a degenerate man in a degenerate administration, the most pathetic anti-American administration, perhaps certainly in modern history. I mean, it's worse than Nixon. It's way worse than Nixon. I mean, Nixon, they even say it. J.D. Vance said that one time on stage. He said, I look at the Nixon stuff and I think, like, what was the big deal, really? Something like that, J.D. Vance said. And I mean, from his perspective, it's like, yeah, he probably does think, like, shoot, we've done a
A lot
hundred
worse.
times worse than that. And
Yeah.
we're not even just still in office. We're doing trades, making billions of dollars openly as well. So we're all going to leave here rich as hell. Trump did in June, it was released, Trump had done 1,000 trades. The president of the United States did 1,000 stock trades in the month of June alone. And some of them were done just before an announcement of a deal with a company, with the government. And that guy's the transportation secretary who wants to make sure she doesn't lose her very special Christian values when she goes to Harvard. Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is not, it's not possible to respect this.
Yeah.
It's not possible. It's
Well,
too ridiculous.
the anti education thing has been a part of the Republican Party now for a long time. And Kristen DeMay was making that point in her book Jesus and John Wayne, that this isn't a new development. They've been working this out for a long time. And again, it's one of those things that, because I remember back in the 60s, and Mom and I were talking about that just yesterday, how we thought the movement towards everybody, a highly educated populace, we just, that's what everybody was talking about in the 60s. We want an educated populace. And so, we went to college, and college was affordable back then.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that was what I thought was the vision for America. The vision for America was to be the most educated country in the world. That was the vision back in the 60s that I caught on to. I didn't want to be one of those guys who didn't go to college. You know?
And it
Because-
continued through the 90s for sure, because everybody was going to college. I mean, and as many people as possibly could were going to college. There was no like, oh, don't go because you'll lose your faith. Even when I was going, which is, I graduated in 99. So it really pulled through all the way to there. I will say though that what I think has happened, anti-intellectualism has been a part of the United States forever. It's been embedded in our country. And what we have now is anti-intellectualism just from the conservative side.
Yeah.
There's no anti-intellectualism on the liberal side at all. Progressive side is fully on board with education and science. But yeah, I think once it became clear that the emerging knowledge from various disciplines couldn't be harmonized easily with Christianity, and that this tension was just getting greater and greater, which it is. I mean, the tension between Christianity and higher learning is increasing just all the time, and there's no way for it to decrease.
Right.
It's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse, because Christianity is unwilling, in some ways unable, to reform itself in relation to what we now know reality to be. And so this is just going to get worse and worse for those who want to remain in a sort of fundamentalist, conservative Christian worldview. They'll have places to go, right? And so what you can do is, if you're somebody like Duffy, or you can send your kid to college, right? But send them to Hillsdale in Michigan, which is like the most conservative one, or send them to Calvin and keep them in the bubble 4 years longer, essentially, right? The Christian Reformed Church has been doing this forever.
Yeah.
The bubble's tight as it can be. You got church, you got Christian schools, you go to your Christian college. So, I mean, you're 22, 23 years old until you have an opportunity to really think outside of that worldview in any way, shape, or form. But by then, you're in deep.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in deep. Your whole identity's wrapped around it.
Yeah.
So that's the way that I think it's been avoided. But increasingly, I mean, those places are shutting down. Those places are dying. And they can't die fast enough for me. I mean, I hope all these liberal arts schools that choose to be this anti-intellectual university or college or seminary, I hope they die, and I hope they die soon, because they're killing us. They're killing, like literally killing our country. Like, we have measles outbreaks.
Mm-hmm.
We have weather that we are not going to be able to live through coming at us. We have like religious wars. We're like this close to, like, we got people going to Dearborn, Michigan because they think we need to do a crusade against the Muslims of Dearborn, Michigan. We are just constantly on the edge of a major breakup or problem or attack or something. right? I mean, we are just living constantly on this edge of chaos. And it's like, I don't know how long we can do that until we actually get full chaos,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah. It's easy to be settled right now if you're people like us, people like me. I mean, we live in basically a gated community. There's no gate, but there just as well could be.
Hmm.
There's only one way in and one way out. It's condo association. And so when Sal and I go for a walk at night before bed, we often remark how quiet it is. There's nobody, how easy our life could be if if we didn't care about any of this stuff.
Hmm.
If we just said, shoot, we got 10, 15 years left. Let's enjoy life. And why not? I mean, people say that to me, just enjoy life. Why are
Yeah.
you concerned about all this stuff? You're in good shape. Just enjoy life. I'm like, yeah, but I got 4 grandkids, and someday I'm hoping some great grandkids. And if I'm not thinking about them, then I'm not thinking. Pure and
Well, and
simple.
also I don't
Gotta be
only give a
considering that.
shit. And also I don't only give a shit about my friends and family. Sorry.
No, that's right.
I
I
actually
don't.
give a shit about total strangers across the planet. And you're right. I guess my life would be better if I didn't.
Right.
But maybe the whole world would be better if you, people who don't care, did care.
That's right. Right.
Maybe that's the answer,
Right.
Or
Well,
if you
there's
could
there's
be
a
asked to
quote.
care beyond your little groups.
Yeah, there's a quote I read years back. There's a couple of them that I hung on to, and this one is it. The guy said, if we could get people of goodwill to all pull in the same direction, this would be a wonderful world in which we could all live in harmony. We could all have what we need, but we can't seem to get people of goodwill to rally around the concept of sharing, of everybody caring for everybody else, or that as much as I care about my grandchildren, I ought to care about the kids in Nigeria or Gaza or the Sudan or whatever.
Congo. I mean, there's so many places. Yeah.
I know. I mean, where do you go? Well, yeah, I don't have anything more on that, but do you have one more clip?
Yeah. Let me play another one. I want you to hear from this trans analyst in the CIA, the first person to transition while being an agent. So she came in as male and transitioned to female. Her name is Julia. And I'm going to play the part about her story with Mike Pence, because this will be like a more positive story than what we could play, because we have to also talk about what happens to her eventually. So she gets, just as background, she becomes the person who gives the intelligence brief every day to Mike Pence. And this is the story she's telling here.
But then just a few days later, I'm standing in the driveway at the Naval Observatory, and there he is, Mike Pence, with this white helmet hair. And, he says, Julia, tell me something I don't know. And we were off, and it was just me and Mike Pence. And
For how long?
so I served him for over a year. And then I repeatedly, after my time with him, would come back to fill in for briefers when they would get sick or they'd go on leave. And I kept doing that through to the end of the first administration. So I was in the Trump White House about 2 years, all said.
You wrote this when my tour finally ended. Pence invited my family to the White House. In his office, he took my mother's hand and smiled. You must be very proud of your daughter. A friend of mine texted me this and was like, why am I crying reading about Mike Pence? And it's kind of how I felt as well reading it. And it's like, well, and at that point, you're there with your wife, and I don't know, what was that like?
It was a profound moment for me. I mean, obviously, I wasn't ignorant of his public positions, and I will say I don't know what's in his heart and what his deepest beliefs are. I just knew that through the last year before that, through traveling around the world with him, he had treated me with dignity and respect, and had been an amazing PDB customer, really, really effective in giving me that experience that I'd always wanted. And here he was with my mom, who had had an enormously difficult time with my transition just many years before. And Mike Pence is affirming my gender identity. And I thought we made it. I mean, what more could I possibly ask for but that? And it was really felt like, no matter what setbacks we could suffer, at least for me, I felt like we were there. And these two dreams that I'd had since I was a kid of being a CIA officer and this unexplainable dream of being a woman could coexist in the same universe.
The affirming thing, I guess, tell me if I'm translating this right, but it seems like if your mother is having trouble with this, it's like, if even Mike fucking Pence can say you got to be proud of your daughter, then anybody can. Then I'm accepted everywhere. And it's kind of maybe how I felt about when my mother had a priest that, had come around on my gay sexuality, right? And like, is that kind of what you meant?
Yeah. I mean, if and I had also briefed virtually every senior member of the Trump cabinet, including President Trump on Air Force One. And it was never a problem. And not only that, but the vice president had asked me to extend my tour. So if there had ever been an issue, they could have easily had me just fade away without any problems. But no, they wanted me to serve, and I did.
So that's the best part of it.
That's an amazing story. That's how it ought to be, Josh.
I know.
How it ought to be. There's no reason it can't be. Listen to her.
I know.
How can you not look at her and say, what a patriot, for one thing, whatever you want to decide as a patriot. But I mean, this is heartwarming and encouraging and feels hopeful to me until you follow the rest of the story.
Yeah. The reason she's being interviewed is because, well, essentially Joe Biden had sat down her and other officers and said, like, I know this is going to be awful. I know what's coming is going to be awful. I know you're hearing people say, resign, just get out. You don't need this, but we need as many of you as possible to stay on. Trump doesn't know it, but he's going to need you, so on and so forth. And she and many others, because they're just really good people with integrity, moral courage, moral clarity, they stay on. And what happens is like 3 days in, the Trump administration fires, I think, is 160 different officers, not her at this point. And it's a total fiasco and a mess. Like, suddenly you have people can't get files they need. They can't get into filing cabinets to get pertinent classified information about China or whatever they're studying. So then she has to call some of them and say, please come back. We need you. These people that they literally fired them and said, you have 15 minutes to get out of the building. That's how they fired them. Like, in the most disrespectful way possible, because these are people with no dignity, no decency. They're so freaking pathetic. It makes me sick. And eventually, it comes out from Laura Loomer, one of the biggest degenerates in the world, that she says, oh, there's a trans CIA officer working in the White House. And so they then fire her because it became public.
Megyn Kelly was a part of that too, right?
Megyn Kelly was a part of it too. And then they actually have to quietly ask her to come back for a few days because they really need her. But can you just do it real quietly? And she does it.
I know.
And she does it.
I know. And they're the ones we're demonizing. We're demonizing.
Those are the people that we can't live with. Got to have two genders.
It's all turned upside down.
It's definitely all turned upside down. I'm just not convinced that this isn't what Christianity really is at its heart. That's my trouble.
Yeah, I know that's your trouble. And it troubles me too.
See a way, because every time, everywhere, every time I turn, my opponents are always white Christians and have been for as long as I can remember. Everywhere I turn, all the time.
Yeah.
That's who's against me. That's who I'm fighting. And And then this is another example of that, with a weird kind of like hopeful caveat of Mike Pence, of all people, being able and willing to just accept a person and say, I accept you, you're qualified, let's go.
And you should be proud of your daughter. I mean,
And that
calling
beautiful
calling
line.
her daughter
So
to the
I,
mom.
yeah.
I'm telling
He
you,
didn't, it wasn't public information given to him when she started. Like they didn't talk about it. But towards the end of her, when she knew she was going to be done, she wrote him a letter telling him she was trans and thanking him. And so he did know by that time when he talked to the mother, he knew. And there was also a moving thing in the article. You can read about it in the Atlantic. She was like tearfully grateful to Mike Pence for what he did on January 6th. And she told him that to his face. I was proud. I'm proud. I've never been more proud to serve you, she said to him after January 6th.
Yeah.